radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Good evening. Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. Yeah, man. Today is Monday, December 30th, 2019. 364 days into the new year. Only one day left. We are live from a bunker somewhere in the middle of beautiful downtown Burbank, California. And I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States, hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black for KJCR, the Game Changer Network, and KGRA, the Planets. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? How you doing? We made it. Yeah, man. Tonight is our last show for 2019. Pretty amazing. That's right. And tonight, very special guest, Billy Carson is here. That's right. What a way to wrap the year, Billy Carson. We're going to be talking about Hermeticism, the creation story. That's what we're going to do tonight. Maybe we'll squeeze in some phone calls from all of you, too, as well. Follow me on Twitter, at JChurchRadio. That's where all the action is, at JChurchRadio. Hashtag F2B is the sandbox right there on Twitter. You can join the conversation there. Any questions or comments for me tonight? Hashtag F2BQ. Hello to everybody in the chat room over on Spreaker. And, you know, it's the last show of the year. Let me jump over here. Hello, everyone. Okay, so I got it in. See, I'm paying attention. Got that in. We have our chat room over at KGRA, the Planet, as well. And here we are. It's our last show of the year. You know, when I do the countdown, and I'll be doing it this Thursday with Danny and Brinkley, what's interesting about that, look who's calling. And hold on. Hey, Billy, I'm live on the air, man, and you're going to be on with us in 25 minutes, so be ready to go. And everybody's listening to you. You're on speaker right now. Say hi to everybody.
I'm looking forward to it. What's up, everybody?
All right, man.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. We'll see you in 25 minutes. I had to pick up. It's Billy. What's he doing calling now? Oh, man. You got to love it, man. It's live radio. There you go. All right. So follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. And you can also email throughout the show, Jimmy at JimmyChurchRadio.com. And, wow. What a blur of a week it has been. And here we are. Monday night, our last show of the year, Billy Carson. Tomorrow, of course, is New Year's Eve, and we're having a little dinner party. So we got the madness of prepping for that and a show in the middle of all of it. So, but tomorrow night we'll be gathering with friends and family, and I hope that all of you are doing the same. And whatever it is that you want to do on New Year's Eve, do it, have a good time, and just don't get arrested, okay? And so that's our evening tomorrow night. I do want to, I got to make a comment. Last night I was on Coast, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But last Thursday was our Fade to Black company holiday party at the Rainbow Bar and Grill. And it was raining and cold and, snow across the country. And so many people were flying in and driving in. And I was a bit nervous. I was like, man, with the weather the way it is and everything that's going down right now, I would blow out this party. Well, it turned out to be the exact opposite. It was packed. And to hang out with all of you was just amazing. Rita had the most amazing, perfect evening, and it was just so much fun. And so for all of you that was there, okay, thank you. It was a perfect night. We left the Rainbow at 2 a.m. We closed that joint, man. We closed it. And I think as the last, it was Corby Waste. Corby was with us to the bitter end, but it was a lot of fun. And so for all of you that were there, thank you. It was perfect, and I can't imagine what it's going to be like next year at the Rainbow Bar and Grill. And tonight, Billy Carson joins us, and we're going to have a full discussion on Hermeticism and the creation story. Billy is the co-founder of the founder of Forbidden Knowledge, the author of the Compendium of the Emerald Tablets, and he's an expert host on Deep Space, the original streaming series on Gaia. And Billy has amassed in social media over 2 million followers. And not only is he the founder of Forbidden Knowledge Incorporated and the best-selling author of the Emerald Tablets, he's an expert host, and he's a television personality. He's got a couple of TV series out now. He's also the host over at Ancient Civilizations on Gaia, and he is the CEO of First Class Space Agency based in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and his space agency is involved in research and development of alternative propulsion systems and zero-point energy devices, and he's also the founder of Pantheon Elite Records, and recently Mr. Carson earned the Certificate of Science with an emphasis on neuroscience at MIT. His website is forbiddenknowledge.com, and I would like to welcome back to Fade to Black, Billy Carson. Billy, I just saw you a couple of days ago, man.
Yeah, man.
How you doing?
I'm fantastic, man. I'm still rolling. Since you saw me, I haven't stopped yet.
Yeah, neither have I. And you know what's funny? For everybody out there, Billy, of course, flew out here to Los Angeles for our holiday party, but he was also taping and doing stuff here in town. And then we also did some taping for his new documentary on the Black Knight satellite. So we did that after the party. Then last night I hosted Coast to Coast. You were out here working, flew back to Florida, and here we are tonight. We haven't stopped. We haven't come up for air. It's been pretty wild.
This is what it takes, though, man. To be elite of the elite in, your field, it takes this kind of dedication and work ethic, and just drive and determination to get things done, completed. And we never get satisfied with just one project here or one project there. We're always looking, to push ourselves to the limit to come up with more information and content that's going to help the general population of the world.
I asked somebody a couple of years ago, a celebrity of note who was always busy, right? It's just always never a day off, never, and I said, man, it's getting pretty nutty. I used to enjoy my weekends off. And he said, man, never stop. Never take your foot off the gas. Never, ever. Don't say no. Just keep moving forward. It's what you do. Never forget that. And it's words of advice, that's it.
Right. That's it, man. I mean, and plus, that's going to keep our brains functioning properly. That's going to keep, because the brain is like a muscle. If you don't exercise it, it'll definitely go soft. And, so I think that, this is going to help us overcome a lot of potential mental issues as well.
Well, I don't know. Today I feel pretty soft.
Don't tell that to anybody.
I feel pretty soft. Last night I got home from Coast and I knew what was going on today. Not only this broadcast, but we have a big our dinner party that we do every single year on New Year's Eve, and that's happening tomorrow. I had workers over at the house the first thing this morning doing stuff, some things, and that's it, man. I had a few hours sleep, and I had to absolutely get through today and get to this broadcast and I'm just like, man, and we're not done. And as soon as this is the thing, Billy, this is what's crazy. With our family, New Year's is like the biggest day of the year, right? It's a huge day. And so we have our party tomorrow night. Then New Year's Day, we drive from house to house to house, dinner, right? And that's what we have to do. And then what happens on Thursday? Another Fade to Black broadcast, right?
Yeah.
Just like, oh man, you just got to get through it. You got to get through it. So I wanted to ask you this before we get started. In my opening comments tonight, last night when I got home from Coast, I was, in the dark, and I'm closing my eyes. Rita's asleep, and this weird vision popped in my head, and this was the vision. If E.T. showed up, and they probably did, but if E.T. showed up in like 1850 and saw the United States in the middle of cowboys and Indians, right? Mm-hmm. Cowboys and Indians, wagon trains, horses, the most technology that we had at that moment, if they came down and saw us, we had fire, right? That's the wheel, right? That's what they would have seen. Mm-hmm. And what would they have thought, where we were with technology? Because as I'm going through that vision, I'm imagining if we went to another planet, right, we're interstellar, and we come across a planet with signs of life, and we go and we see that, right, where that civilization had fire. That's it. Mm-hmm. No electricity, no internet, no fire. Fire. Man.
Yeah, they're looking like, whoa, we caught a civilization at a very low stage of development. And I would, if I was that race of beings, I would probably want to set up shop and observe and watch. As a matter of fact, that's what Thoth the Atlantean claims to have done in his writings, that he would travel to other planets and watch civilizations rise and fall. And I could see that. I mean, I could really see something like that. There's probably obviously some type of a prime directive that most of these species operate under.
Right.
So they wouldn't directly interact with a race of beings at a lower level of civilization. But obviously that has been broken. Laws are made to be broken, obviously, because we can see evidence that wasn't followed all the way.
Sure. And would it be like something like, we're going to come back in about 1 million years. You guys have got a long ways to go, because you don't know how quick those developments are going to happen, or if they're going to happen at all, right?
Yeah.
And for us, what we did between 1850 and 1950, what we did between 1900 and 1950, that was an incredible jump of technology. I mean, we couldn't even keep up with ourselves. And I'm talking about the splitting of the atom, electricity, audio, stereo, radio. You know, between in 60 years, we went from vaudeville, right? Yeah. The Catskills. We went from vaudeville with gas lamps lighting up the stages, right? No electricity. I mean, there was electricity, but it wasn't like what we're thinking. And in 60 years, we went from vaudeville, Broadway, no electric guitars, all the way to Jimi Hendrix and Led Zeppelin in 1969. Right? Yeah. Think about that compression of technology. We went to the moon. We did all of these things in 60 years. Mm-hmm. You know, and you just can't predict how a civilization is going to advance. You know, and what if certain things didn't happen? Would we just still be dealing with fire today? Right. Exactly. There's these sparks that come out of the darkness inside the minds of the people that are, inhabiting these avatar bodies that we have, and maybe a few interjections here and there from some of these advanced beings, a couple of hints and tips, and then those are followed up, and next thing you know, they develop into full-blown technologies, and like you say, we go from a carriage and horse all the way to the moon, and then even sending remote control cars to Mars in the 70s, So it's really amazing what we've been able to accomplish in such a short period of time. But during my studies and research, I found out that the Arabs were on such fast track of technology that if it wasn't for the Inquisitions, we would have been on the moon, or they would have been on the moon in the 1800s. Yeah, I've thought the same thing about Egypt. And the way things were at 3000 BC and how advanced they were. Mesopotamia, too. You can't take ancient Sumer out of the mix. But all of the things that make a civilization upright and correct. I'm talking about paved roads and agriculture and math and science and music and written communications and all of that, right? Religion and government and structure. Everything was in place. Laws, schools, right? Everything was there. It seems that they hit some kind of entropy, or something happened where they came unglued, and so did Greece, so did Rome. Egypt and Mesopotamia weren't the only two countries to do this. Yeah. But that ungluing stopped the progress where they should have had computers at 1000 BC. They should have been going to the moon by 1000 BC, because we went from fire and steam and no technology. In 100 years, we're on the moon. Right. And Egypt was right there. And I'm not taking anything away from those that created it, but one has to ask, what was the inspiration for all of this advancement? Was it embedded in the DNA? Was it from a race that was off planet that observed us in 1850 and said, you know what, I think they're ready to go, right? Let's kick this off. We didn't know how we learned it, but the ideas came. Is that too far off of the mark to jump to that kind of conclusion? I think it's actually a combination of everything you said. I believe that it's a little bit of all of that. Some of it is some advanced beings watching us get to a specific level, realizing we're just on the precipice of moving into the next level technologically, and giving us a little bit of a push, but also looking more into ancient records of the Book of Enoch, where you had the Watchers that came down and taught us different types of technologies and how to make jewelry and all these other different types of things. And then, so you're looking at ancient, you're looking at a little bit more maybe what you want to call close to modern, coming out of the Middle Ages and so forth, and trying to get us to this technological age. And then also, I think that in the ether of space-time itself, all information already exists, and the brain doesn't actually create consciousness, it downloads it. So I believe that individuals on the right frequency, when you say, I got a great idea or a great invention, I think people are downloading that information right from space-time, right directly into their bodies, and then
have the capability of discerning it, and then turn it into a physical object in the third dimension.
And you would have to, if you were a civilization all the way down to an individual, if this happens where you're getting this downloaded information, you can't know that it wasn't yours. You would have to believe that it was you or, the people of Earth that came up with this, so it doesn't distort or undo the way that you're progressing, right? If you find out that you were helped and it came from off planet, then that negates it and may even stagnate the development of everything because it takes you off focus. You would have to think.
Focus and makes you think that, I got to worship somebody to give me some more information.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it kind of comes down to the prime directive again, right? So if you're being taught this, you have to think that it's your own original thought. And so you would have to be taught in a way or shown this information in a way that is not disruptive. It's not going to be a TV screen, right? It's not going to be some secret text or books or blueprints. It would have to come in another form, maybe programmed into our DNA.
Oh, absolutely. And when you look at the DNA and how it stores memory, like I said many times, 1 gram of DNA can store 433 petabytes of data, which is an enormous amount of data in one drop. And so a human body can store 13.5 billion years of data, which is ironically the same age as the universe itself. So a human being is a gigantic storage USB hard drive with the capability of uploading and downloading data directly from the grid itself, the energy grid that surrounds all of us, and also directly from other people. So we're really, inhabiting some amazing biology. No wonder why a lot of these beings, these advanced beings, or we call them advanced, maybe they're really jealous of us because of these avatar bodies that we've been given and developed into, that we really haven't fully realized the true capability and power of these bodies that we're inhabiting right now when they're plugged into our light being. We have so many different things we can activate in here that gives us really a level of supreme power. But we just have taken it for granted or have been disconnected from it or don't believe it enough. And so we've kind of suppressed our own selves from accessing our own power.
What would happen to civilization today if E.T. came and made contact with us and then dropped a bunch of bombshells? Like, we taught you guys how to start a fire, right? And then we left. And you know what? We kind of we gave Thomas Edison the idea for the telephone, right? We gave him the idea for the phonograph. We gave the Wright brothers would we freak out with that if that was dropped on us?
I think right now 50% of the people would go, I knew it, and then the other 50% would be like saying, you're Satan, some crazy thing like that. So I think half the world is probably ready for that, and the other half isn't. And it's so possible that it what you're talking about, because when you look at some of the history of science and some of the things we've done all the way back in the late 60s and early 70s, being able to transmit frequencies into the brains of animals and controlling them. And in modern day biology, we found out that we can even transmit information, or the U.S. military found out they can transmit information, voices, directly on frequencies into somebody's head from miles away even. So they can actually make you think you're hearing voices and being told things and being told and given information without you even seeing anybody within miles. So this is real technology that exists that we possess. Can you imagine what a civilization a million years ahead can do?
Well, and that's what we are trying desperately as a civilization today, as a planet. We are desperately trying to find signs of life out there. That is the focus of everything with exoplanets and fast radio burst and everything. That any sign of high technology, that's what we're doing. E.T. is doing the exact same thing, and they have found this planet a long time ago. And they knew that this, not only that we had life, but that things were going to progress here, and they needed to keep an eye on us. Because if we saw, and, we're looking at Europa, right here in our own solar system, right? We're looking at a moon of Jupiter, so excited about, if we're going to find life in our own solar system, it's going to be right there on Europa. It might be on Mars and maybe even on the moon and other, but that's what we're doing, and we're focused on it. Well, E.T. definitely found out about Earth a long time ago, because everything is alive here. You can't stop life from happening on Earth.
Right.
We've had near extinction events so many times, and a couple of days later, everything grows back. Right?
Yeah. And we've sent out so much data from all the way going back to the late 1800s all the way until now, from radio signals and TV shows and different types of frequencies, experiments, nuclear explosions. All of those create frequencies that that travel into space at the speed of light, and don't stop moving. And those signals undoubtedly have been picked up by other species and races throughout the galaxy.
And and I want to move on. We're going to be discussing Hermeticism and the creation story tonight. It's going to be a great conversation, and we're leading into that. What would the impact be of our earliest television programming that's going out, that went out like, the Three Stooges, right?
Right.
I Love Lucy.
Right.
And that's what they see. They may not necessarily see the evening news. I don't know how much science programming was broadcast out, but certainly the earliest stuff that was on television was comedy. And if that's what's getting to them first, what do they think of us?
Right. Well, they hopefully they think we got a great sense of humor, but they're really probably analyzing the archaic technology that we're using to establish what type of civilization we are. Are we type 0, type 1, type 2?
Right.
And so based off of that, they're probably looking at it more as an analytical situation, and maybe slightly as anthropology, to kind of judge and see what we are and how our customs are and so forth, and what we like to do and what we, but probably more on a level of just trying to analyze where we are technologically to see if we potentially could be a threat to the galaxy or not at some point.
When we're going to be discussing Hermeticism after the break, but if we look at the history of Hermeticism, what it says to me is that at one point, 3,000, 4,000 years ago, 3,000, 2,000 years ago, we started to have the same advancements that we are having today, where Hermeticism was creating scientific thought outside of the box in a very intelligent, if you and I sat down with a Hermeticist from 1000 AD, we would have a very intellectual talk, right?
Yep. That's right.
And you think about the rest of the world in ancient Rome, right, at 400 BC, we're talking about mud huts.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
I know.
Right?
That's crazy.
But down in Alexandria in Egypt, they had it going on. It's like this two things happening.
Paradigms.
Yeah, two different, because 1,000 years before the mud huts of Rome, 1,000 years before Greece is established, we had Hermeticism and thought and enlightenment going down in Alexandria, didn't we?
Oh, absolutely. And they covered everything from metaphysics to quantum physics, quantum mechanics, esoteric wisdom, technology. It was just off the charts. Absolutely off the charts. And what's really amazing, when you analyze the time periods of BC to the same time period of AD, you can start to see a lot of similarities. It's almost like we're in a time loop in a way.
Let's get ready for our break. When we come back, we'll get into the creation story and the foundation of Hermeticism, because it ended up very quickly going around the globe. Right, yeah. People were going back to where they came from Egypt with what they learned and took it globally, didn't they?
Oh, absolutely. That's why they ended up in so many different religious texts all around the world.
It's a fascinating subject and a great way for us to wrap up 2019. Pretty nuts, isn't it, that we got through 2019 and now we're getting ready to go into 2020. I would have never thought we would make it, but we did. So let's hang on. Let's take a quick break right here. This is Fade to Black. This is our last show of 2019, and we're spending it with Billy Carson. Stay right there. This is Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. You can follow Billy Carson at Forbidden Knowledge right there on Twitter. We'll be right back. Stay with us. All right, welcome back. Our guest tonight, last show of the year, 2019. Billy Carson is with us. And before we get into Hermeticism, Billy, I have to bring up 2019, the year that was. We've got one day left. It's 364 days into this year. And you look back at 2019, are you surprised that we didn't have I think most of us expected like disclosure to kick off in 2019, and it felt like it wanted to. Right? It felt like we were right there, but it didn't happen. Were you surprised by that? And what do you expect in 2020?
Yeah, I wasn't really surprised by it. A lot of people are pushing that it's going to come out, and every week they have another excuse why it didn't happen. And I really do think that we are the disclosure, and that the only form of disclosure we're going to get probably between now up to 2025 is going to be whatever disclosure that we meaning the conscious community, people that are truth seekers, ufologists, researchers, field researchers, whatever we bring to the table to the general population that they can research and look up for themselves is going to be a type of a disclosure. I think they're almost kind of using us as a warm-up process, because I really do believe that this new rover headed to Mars for 2020 is going to be the rover that announces or finds, or quote unquote, that we don't even know it's there, but finds life on Mars and comes back and says, hey guys, we've got an official announcement now by all the governments in the world. We discovered alien life, and that alien life is a bacteria that we found on Mars. And I think that's going to be the first announcement between 2020 and 2025, that an official announcement of alien bacteria will be announced. But that will start the process warming us up for another 10 to 15 years into understanding that there was an ancient civilization in our solar system.
And I agree with you. And I feel that disclosure is going to happen from science. It's not going to happen from ufology. We have spoken about it. We've got all the video and evidence and contact that it's been constant, but it's never been enough. And that disclosure will end up happening through the science community, right? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, I believe so. Everything, no empire can persist forever. So this empire of this oligarchy that has the control of all the science and information, those people, they live and then they die. And eventually some of these people, which I think we have some of now that are moving up into the ranks of science, that are a little bit more conscious and understand and really want mankind to advance past this archaic mindset, are going to be bringing forth a lot of these new developments and discoveries but still under under a trickle down effect, but still getting more information than we've ever had before in the past. Just knowing, I think, even that alien bacteria can survive on another planet in our solar system is going to change a lot of the paradigm of people's minds and thought processes, and start to get us really warmed up to understand that there was truly an ancient civilization and maybe still is current life in our solar system as we speak.
Moving on to, and thank you for that. I'm so hopeful for 2020. And I just know the other day, I didn't talk about it tonight. I'll cover this on Thursday. I need some more information. But it was announced this week that some scientists and theoretical physicists have confirmed entanglement on a chip. Entanglement on a chip. I'm talking about quantum computing. And they have tackled this. That's a huge Massive deal. That's beyond words. Yeah. And now that we have taken this kind of leap, and what's going to come from that, we're going to start to see the fruits of this in months. Right? It's not going to be years. It's going to be very, very quickly. And you take that computational power and you are able to do the work of so many brains that would cover, 1,000 years. We're going to do this in minutes. And
absolutely.
Yeah. It's going to be
it's also going to open up something very interesting, which I was working on a white paper for the last 3 months, which is going to be a deep space communications array that operates off of quantum entanglement. And so what that means is within the next 15 to 20 years, there's no doubt that the general population will know about commercial privately owned vessels that are traveling out to Jupiter and Saturn rings and things like that. But then you have to send messages back to Earth in case there's a situation, just for continuous communication purposes and so forth. But that, even at the speed of light, could take a month to get it here and a month to get the message back. Where if you send out probes ahead of time that are quantum entangled with a crystal chipset on Earth that have then carry out these crystal chips, which are then entangled with the one here, and put them out into deep space, you only have to send a signal or the message to the nearest communications array satellite, which will then transmit your information directly back to the one at home base, bypassing the speed of light on a subspace frequency, because it'll be quantum entangled. So now information can travel instantaneously. Yeah,
that's right. It has to happen that way. You can't depend on the speed of light. No. And one other development that came out in the news over the last week or so was the announcement of 100, maybe even 200, up to 1,000 stars have disappeared. Mm-hmm. Now, right now, if you unpack that, just unpack that for a second, and try to understand and comprehend what they are suggesting. Disappearing stars is a heavy enough thought, but I'm thinking Dyson spheres.
Yes,
I'm
exactly
thinking
they are.
Right. They didn't disappear; they've been enclosed. Right, yep. They have been dimmed. Mm-hmm. Isn't that interesting?
That's really interesting, but that's more evidence of different civilizations reaching that type 2 level. And, so you can see the evidence of that just looking out at the stars, which is one of the things we're going to talk about in the Black Knight satellite documentary that we were working on, and the Epsilon Boötis constellation. The fact that there could be a cloaked advanced civilization out there cloaking stars, because there's a huge void.
Yeah, and it was pretty fascinating when Tabitha's star broke into the news a couple of years ago, and it was so much fun and discussing this, but how physicists immediately jumped on, it's a megastructure, it's an alien megastructure, it's a Dyson sphere. Well, they didn't have any problems jumping to that conclusion so quickly. Right. And that was with one star where we've seen these changes. Now, they are trying to track 100 to 200 disappearing stars.
Right.
And I just wonder how quick it's going to be before the science community starts talking about Dyson spheres again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They need to start talking about it now because that's the evidence. We've just now reached the technological level to be able to see and track and save the information in the sky and then go back and say, oh, wait a minute, this is gone now? NGC 55123 was here yesterday, but now it's gone. That means that it's not gone. Obviously, somebody's utilized it for technological purposes. And so that's our fingerprint now of a type 2 civilization throughout the galaxy, even throughout the universe.
Yeah, and with these disappearing stars by the hundreds, you would expect, if you stay with the scientific dogma of supernovas and stars shrinking, that we would be seeing these lighting up the sky as well. And we haven't seen that transition. They went from being there to not being there.
Yeah.
I'm just blown away by this.
That's the star energy being manipulated for the advancement of a civilization.
Yeah, what do you do as if you're an astronomer, right? And you're booking telescope, observatory time. It's very difficult to do. And you've photographed a slice of the sky and you're looking at it, and then you go back a year later and you're jumping on and you're going back to your point of study in the universe, and the stars are gone.
Right.
Well, what as an astronomer, what do you think? Do you have to go to the alien side of things and away from a collapsing star and the normal things that physics and chemistry present and math to the other side, which is it could be a Dyson sphere, it could be a type 2, type 3 civilization that is taking over a section of the galaxy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if it happened to me, I'd be jumping for joy because I think I just made one of the most incredible discoveries. Of course, in mainstream, they're kind of programmed to say, well, it's not aliens. It's got to be some other, situation. But when you look at it and you go, wow, these stars are literally disappearing. We know what a white dwarf is. We know what a supernova is. We don't see any of those. We don't know what a quasar is. We don't see a quasar. Where did they go? Is there another way that a star can run out of fuel and disappear without, going through those other processes? We haven't been able to detect that yet. So my first thought would be it must be an advanced civilization.
Yeah, taking advantage of the energy. That would have to be it, trying to harness that power so they can progress. That's it, because we're going to do the same thing. We have to do the same thing here if we are going to continue to expand and advance. It's the only answer.
Yeah. And if we can find a way to stabilize our star, because we only have about 5 billion years left on this star, it's about halfway through its life, kind of like me. So if we can stabilize it, if we can stop the shrinking of the telomeres in the star, like in human beings, we can stabilize it at center and keep it going for even longer. Maybe there's a way technologically to even do that.
What's fascinating about this conversation, getting back to Hermeticism, the conversation that we're having now, these were the types of visionary conversations that were going down 3,000 years ago. And what I find so fascinating about that is the education system is going to say, Hermeticism paralleled with Christianity, and it was the same conversations that were going on, and it happened at the same time. It happened at year 0. It happened at 100 AD, and that's all it is. Nothing to see here. And that's the opposite of what is true, right? Hermeticism goes back into the ancient times of Egypt.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The evidence of that is can be found in the actual the prints and drawings left behind that are still etched in stone pillars and floors of civilizations that are so ancient they predate the Bible by tens of thousands of years. And these have been found all over the planet. I'm talking about sacred geometry, the flower of life, the seed of life. All these things point back to these same principles, which in those eras may have been called different principles. Hermetica is more of a Greek terminology. A lot of them could have been called the Kemetic principles, or even older principles and terminologies that we haven't heard yet. It's all the same, talking about the same thing, however, which is this process of understanding how the ether of space-time works, how it interacts with conscious thought, and how the combination of conscious thought and divine energy can create realities and people and things and everything else. So it's really amazing.
When was Hermes Trismegistus first mentioned?
That was around the 1st century. So what's really amazing, a lot of people don't know this, that the Bible was written between 100 AD to 900 AD. And the people that were writing down or copying over information from older texts into other scripture, then putting them and hiding them in little caves and so forth, were followers of Hermes. So the Hermes, the Phoenicians and the followers of Hermes are the people that actually wrote the biblical text or copied over biblical texts from more ancient texts in small pieces, which were then later discovered, and put together. But the Hermetic principles and so forth really go back thousands of years before, before Christianity or anything else. But according to like the Corpus Hermeticum and things like that, around the 1st century is when a lot of that stuff started really making its way around again for I think the 2nd or 3rd time, and then became put into mainstream media or mainstream teachings. And this was a 1st century teaching, but I think it predates that by thousands of years. I'm talking about tens of thousands.
And with Corpus, and I want to get go before Corpus, but with Corpus, the focus was certainly on what God is or what God may be, and the advancement of the soul and the purification of the soul. And we understand, but was there an alchemical or a chemical or a scientific side to it as well?
It was a lot of esoteric knowledge in there. Alchemically, I from what I grabbed from it was that alchemically it was the conversion of thought to create different realities, and becoming born again was one of them. So one of the biggest things that's taught in the Corpus is that the whole thing that Jesus talks about in the New Testament of the Bible, being born again and all this of the Spirit and everything else, that was already talked about in these Hermetic teachings. But the Corpus is talking specifically about how to become born again by changing the way you think, see, feel, understand the world, how you feel about others, operating in unconditional love, and then elevating yourself consciously to another level, which is a form of alchemy, spiritual alchemy, where you're actually reprogramming yourself in a way that you envision and see yourself and the universe. And by that method, you then have the capability of transcending death. That's really what it was about, and from what I took from it.
And with Corpus, coming around in the 1st and 2nd century, and these concepts, they were all pretty solidly based on 3,000-year-old text with the ancient gods and the demigods of Egypt, where all of these principles were pretty firm at 2,500 to 3,000 BC from ancient text that predated even that. Right. And so was it with the Bible and what was written, was it just repeated from what was already pretty solid from 3,000 years prior?
Oh, absolutely. There's no doubt about it. A lot of people confuse the Bible with being written in real time, when in true reality, the Bible is a hodgepodge of ancient texts and scriptures and papyruses from around the world that had been discovered and then kind of pieced together and plagiarized in certain areas, and some areas just completely added all together. But the majority of the Bible can be found in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. You can find it in the Enuma Elish and the 7 Tablets of Creation, the Epic of Gilgamesh, the Atrahasis epic, the Mahabharata, the Egyptian Book of the Dead, which is really the Egyptian Book of Going Forth by Day, the Gospel of the Holy 12. Just so many scripts out there that, and texts and cylinder scrolls as well, that really make up the majority of what we call the modern day Bible, where they just took pieces that they liked and things that they didn't like, they just kept out. Like the Book of Enoch, even though Enoch was so elevated in terms of who he was, his stature and his civilization, that he was mentioned in the Bible, but the book that he wrote or that that mentions him, he didn't write it, but the book that mentions him was left out.
How is it that, Billy, how is it that at 2500 BC, and I'm only going there because that's a pretty solid, established, documented period of history, right? That our educational system is always going to refer to. So if we, at 2500 BC, how is it that when the rest of the world was right in the middle of the Stone Age, not dealing with metals, it's Stone Age, crawling around in the dirt, foraging for seeds, right? I mean, the rest of the world. Greece isn't for another 2,000 years. Mm-hmm. Right? 2,000 years. This country of ours is 250 years old, right? Mm-hmm. How is it that at 2500 BC, these concepts of not only metallurgy, but of parallel worlds, of dimensions, of gods, of knowledge, of math, everything, the soul, the consciousness, all of these concepts were real and very advanced. How is that possible?
Yeah, so basically what happens, if you look at the ancient tablets, in particular the Atrahasis epic and the Enuma Elish, those are really two good ones to go back on because they really go back a great deal of time. You discover that there was an advanced civilization on this planet hundreds of thousands of years ago, literally hundreds of thousands. Now, when you look at the Emerald Tablets, it's another flood story in there. Right at the beginning of the Emerald Tablet number 1, there's a flood story, and the water's just starting to reside around the world. Temples that were built, ancient temples and so forth, are starting to come back up out of the mud and everything else. So what happened was we had a major geological disaster on this planet at a point in time that's been recorded in every civilization on every single continent. And because of that, we literally had fallen back down into the Stone Ages. Thoth, the Atlantean, or you want to call him Hermes Trismegistus, Thrice the Great, whatever you want to call him, he was ordered to bring mankind back up to a higher level of civilization, which he then went to the land of Chem, which is where we get alchemy and chemistry. And that is ancient Egypt before it was called Egypt. That name is a fairly more recent name, in my opinion, but the ancient name is the land of Chem. So he went there to, right after the flood, to start bringing back civilization, teaching sciences and principles and everything else. And this is where the Egyptians, the dynastic Egyptians, inherited these principles and information and technology and knowledge and wisdom that had already been installed into their civilization and society long before they got to the dynastic era, long before. So what happens is that little area right there kind of was a little, a glimmer of light that it was while the rest of the world was in darkness. So you see other people still as cavemen and, trying to get back to the Copper Age and everything else, using chicken bones and stuff like that as tools. Meanwhile, in Egypt, they had already had the kickstart they needed from advanced beings and were moving at a very, very high pace. And they were handing that knowledge and wisdom down verbally and also through very secreted writings and different mystery schools and teachings for adept initiates and handing that information down while the rest of the world was still, like I said, using chicken bones as tools. So it's really amazing.
The concept is a simple one, and it's not confusing, and I think that it's honest. Why does the established education and professional system on this planet want to fight it?
Oh, man. they want to fight it, because if they give us the information that is really our birthright and let us know truly where we came from and who we really are, and how different the ancient past was, I think we would not allow them to control us with this institutionalized teaching system that they've developed with this fake history and fake content to keep us under control. They've got the system set up to keep us as psychological slaves now, and keep us in a system where all of the sparks of light that do try to arise are easily squashed out, and they just can continue to control the people, shorten lifespans, and have us doing their bidding at their will, they being the elites, and allowing themselves to progress to the next level, wherever that is for their agenda. Meanwhile, we're living very short, fearful, stressful lives, and then the next generation arrives, and the next generation. So they keep us oppressed, suppressed, and they keep our lifespan short so that we don't get too smart. Because I really do think that if people really truly understood what me and you know about the ancient past, I'm talking about the general population, religious systems would collapse in a day, and that's a multi-trillion-dollar industry. Just in America alone, the religious system makes more money than all of the tech companies in Silicon Valley in 1 year combined.
So the other day, we're going to take a break right here. The other day, I was listening to a couple of scholars of note discuss this subject. And one of them, and they were laughing, one of them said, it's fascinating how people now jump on the internet and get into every conspiracy theory about lost history, ancient civilizations, and how we got here, and how the governments and the elites are controlling our minds through the media, and how they get sucked into all of this crazy. And I'm thinking to myself, you just contradicted yourself.
Yep.
You just contradicted. Did you even hear the words coming out of your mouth? You contradicted yourself. Let's take a break right here. Let's do it. This is Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight on our last show of the year is Billy Carson. And we're discussing everything tonight. When we come back, we're going to get into the creation story. It's going to be a great conversation. Stay right there. It's Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planet. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back, Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Billy Carson. This is our last show for 2019, and we're discussing everything tonight from Hermeticism to the creation story. And Billy, jumping into it when we're something as broad as the creation story, and we have creation myths, and we have so many different versions of that. And of course we have, and it's like infinite, right? It just goes on and on. We have the creation in the Bible and that version. So when we're dealing with something in the context of the creation story, what are we talking about?
Well, we're really talking about the actual creation of the divine energy, or the manipulation of the divine energy in the universe, and how it was used based on frequency and conscious thought to start to begin to create the most simplest of life forms, and then develop into more advanced life forms and beings, and then an injection of consciousness into those avatar bodies, or those new living beings. And life is emanating at all times, at all points in space-time, through the vesica piscis, which is an intersection of the, where the circles intersect at the seed of life and the flower of life and so forth.
Well, let's
So it
start
really
at the
goes back to the level.
yeah. Let's start at the beginning. Where do we start?
Well, we start where, creation according to Hermes. In the beginning, Noahs, Nous, which is now we call God, created a second Noahs who becomes a craftsman and creates the world. And then Noahs too creates 7 powers in 7 spheres around what will become the earth. And the spheres have control over what will be the earth. So now this is this is like an allegory, but they're really talking about the spheres encircling each other. So one sphere in the center, then encircled by 6 spheres, intersecting, creating 7 spheres. And that now total, when you look at it from a drawing standpoint, creates the seed of life. And that exact format is what we now see in mitosis when you're looking at cell division, in human beings and even other animals. So basically, they're talking about a conscious entity, which Thoth Hermes is calling this God entity, this divine energy, is manipulating this and creating these spheres. And these spheres move into the creation of everything that we now know in the universe. And what's very interesting is those same exact spheres that are mentioned in the Hermetic principles in the beginning creation story are the same exact 7 spheres that are identical to if you cross-cut a slice of DNA and look at it under an electron microscope, you're going to see that exact same imprint of the seed of life in your DNA. So this is really amazing stuff.
Now, that intelligent, conscious God, was this happening throughout the universe?
Yeah, this is a universal thing. So at the moment or the point that it was decided that this universe was going to become a place of creation,
right?
Creation began and started everywhere. It didn't just happen over here or over there. Creation is happening all the time. There was a scientist that took a flask and he sterilized this flask with heat, and then he vacuumed it and he sealed it. And then he put it down and he came back a couple of days later and he decided to check out the inside of that flask. He wanted to see what would happen in there. And when he looked under the electron microscope, he discovered that there were fully formed life forms inside this flask at a microscopic level, but they were all fully formed life forms in there. And so what that means is life is emanating into this third dimension at all places, at all points in space-time. You'll never know how many different species and animals there are. You'll only know which ones go extinct on this planet, but you'll never know how many because they're always coming into full creation at all times.
Life always happens.
That's right.
In the Taoist creation story, they describe much the same thing. The way gave birth to unity. Unity gave birth to duality. Duality gives birth to Trinity. Trinity gives birth to everything else. Right? It's describing the exact same thing, isn't it?
Yep, absolutely. And these stories, you'll see they permeate around the entire planet through all civilizations. They all are saying the same thing. They all go back, if you listen to the ancient sages and so forth, that we're living in a creation and that this creation is basically created from conscious thought. And as above, so below, you come to us, everything that we experience in this third dimension as part of our reality, that's what we call quote unquote man-made, is because of conscious thought. So the same way that this universe and life was created and formed is the same exact way that we are creating even the devices that we're using right now to speak to each other. First, this computer that I'm talking to you on was thought about inside of somebody's mind, what is a thought? A thought is a wave of electromagnetic frequency, and that is a light wave. So every single thought that we think is actually a wave of light, a light wave frequency that we can't see with the naked eye, but it is light. And that then frequency generates something on the consciousness platform, which is the concept of what the computer would look like, what shape it would be and everything else. And then it's taken into a 2-dimensional platform where it's drawn on a piece of paper or maybe taken into another type of way that you design it on a CAD design or whatever. And then from there, it's then moved into a 3rd-dimensional platform through an engineer. So an engineer takes that 2-dimensional concept that was first only a wave of light, and converts that into a third dimensional physical object that we can touch. So we manifest things into reality on a consistent basis, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, using the same exact system, as above, so below, as the creator of the universe, through light thought, through electromagnetic waves and frequencies that then convert divine energy into physical matter.
When we look at the single celled and the complex organisms that anthropologists and historians are going to tell us, took a couple of billion years to develop on this planet. But at some point, conscious thought comes into play into these complex organisms, whether it's through some type of brain, but the development is happening through the amino acids, RNA, and DNA. And
Correct.
Now conscious thought comes into play, or is it always there? Right? I mean,
I believe it's always there. Yeah, I think the energy is always here. I think there's a consistent stream of this energy, this life force energy, on at all points in space time, at all times. It's nonstop.
Well, we know that if you look at a dog is an intelligent creature, smart, right? Very smart.
Yeah.
But understanding the concepts of what we're talking about right now, I'm not so sure that a dog even cares, right?
Right. Right.
Right? But it's certainly a conscious, sentient being. Now, if we back up off of that and we look at something like earthworms, right? Is there a conscious thought that is happening there with the more simple life forms?
Right. When you look at the simple life forms, and a lot of them appear to not even be, have brains, then you got to look at it on a cellular level, because each cell is an entire universe.
Right.
And each cell has its own process of doing everything that the entire body can do, of whatever it's part of. And we've proven that with stem cell technology now. One cell can become anything in the human body. And so if you're looking at a worm, for example, one cell in that worm has DNA, RNA. It can store information in memory. So that particular worm could be accessing information directly from DNA, epigenetic type memory storage system, and utilizing that as a form of consciousness, maybe not in a way that we can understand or we can process, but in a way that obviously it can and continue to persist for literally millions of years in that format. So everybody has its own level of consciousness and understanding of life from its own perspective. And I think that's really what's going on with this whole experiment of this universe. I really do believe that there's this conscious entity that has split itself up into Googles of entities or streams of frequencies that have tapped into all of these different life forms so that they can experience what it's like to be in the third dimension, everything from an earthworm all the way to a sentient human being and to a sentient hominid on another planet, to some type of sea life, even a blade of grass, just so that they can collect data and information and experience this realm that's been created for what it is, to gain perspective and insight and everything else.
The concept of what you are made up of, I'm talking about Billy Carson. You are made up of the exact same stardust that I am, right? You've got one dead star in your left hand and atoms from another dead star in your right. This basic concept is not exclusive to the planet Earth. This is everywhere in the universe. That's the only way to look at it, because if you accept that you and I are made of stardust, and so are our pets and the cars that we drive, right? It's all the same atoms. Then it's the same principles throughout the universe, on every planet and every star system.
Yep, absolutely, no doubt. I mean, all atoms in the entire third dimension are all recycled atoms. So at this particular moment in space-time, the atoms have reformulated into my avatar body and your avatar body. And what I am is I'm a pile of atoms trying to understand what another pile of atoms is thinking and perceiving and knowing and everything else. We're just piles of atoms, from that, if you want to take a look at it from that perspective. But this creation story from the Hermetic principles is really outstanding, because no matter where you look, even in the Kabbalion, it says the principle of truth are 7. Those are the 7 spheres again. He who knows these understandingly passes the magic key before whose touch all doors of the temple fly open. So no matter where you go, no matter where you look, you're going to find this same principle of creation with these spheres, these intersecting spheres, creating the seed of life, and how life emanates into the third dimension through the womb of the vesica piscis, which is where the intersections occur. And it's really amazing because, like you say, those emanations created enough energy to power up stars, and they explode, and then stars died so that we can live.
And if you ever questioned this concept, and I think it's all completely scientific fact, but take a deep breath, Billy, into the microphone. Just go and exhale for me. You just breathed the same oxygen as the builders of Göbekli Tepe 10,000 years ago.
That's right, man. That is accurate. You're right. I was just thinking about that the other day.
That is a scientific fact. Yeah. So creation and the creation story and these concepts are universal. The atoms don't go away. The particles don't go away. Energy doesn't die. It just moves on to something else. And it moves on to you and I today. That has to come from an intelligent mind. It wasn't by accident. Therefore, the creation story is it's as solid as any other science out there.
Oh, absolutely. And we've recreated the same method used to move atoms and energy from place to place to reformulate new objects. We've already recreated a system like that in the lab through nanotechnology. Okay. If you look at nanotechnology, we now have the ability, even if you look it up, to create nanotechnology that can move and reform themselves into different types of robotic structures and even small construction surfaces and things like that. So that is the same technique consciously, if you really analyze what atoms are doing, that we're going through, but we've now taken it to a technological level that we can perceive and utilize and manipulate through nanotech. There's actual full-blown nanotech bots being worked on right now that if you blow off the arm, another one will reformulate itself through this, these nanobots, these nanotechnology chips or whatever they are. So we're looking at a situation where, again, as above, so below, we keep replicating what's in our DNA through our technology. We've even replicated reincarnation through video games. You get 5 lives in a video game. If you don't learn your lesson, you get killed, and you got to come back and do it again until you learn your lessons. It's the same thing in a video game. We just keep replicating what's already stored in our bodies.
When will we understand how we go from the atoms that constitute a rock or mud, right, or straw, doesn't matter, into consciousness being instilled into the very same atoms that make us, but also make rocks or a car tire? There's a transition that happens there. When is science going to understand where consciousness comes from? Thought, individuality, humor, comedy. Yeah.
I think we're going to have to get to the point where we understand there's levels of consciousness, first of all. There's levels of consciousness inside of even a rock, believe it or not. Some people think a rock is just an inanimate object that is not capable of consciousness. But just as the earthworm is probably conscious through its individual cells that communicate with each other, a rock can be conscious through its individual atoms that are communicating with each other. And not on a level that we could perceive as level consciousness, but there's a certain level of consciousness in every single subatomic particle and every particle, because we've proven that with the double slit experiment. Once you look at an electron passing through a slit inside the experiment, it then changes and decides to do something else. It decides to become solid matter. But when you're not looking, it's just a wave. So you see that there's consciousness at the very smallest level in a single particle. So what we have to do is we have to understand what then takes us from that single particle intelligence to an intelligence of multiple, billions of particles or trillions of particles that then come together and combine to create a sentient consciousness, which we don't really create. What happens is we literally download that information. So scientists discovered a nerve that wraps around the brain, and it kind of resembles the thorn of crowns that Christ wore, believe it or not. So they discovered that this particular nerve that wraps around the inside of the skull is the main part of like the encapsulation of what we consider to be sentient consciousness. And I think that with the magnetite crystals in the brain, combined with that nerve, and now you have the stream of consciousness that's already coming through, but each individual brain is set up to a particular frequency, almost like, you call somebody on a cell phone, you type in the phone number. We're all using the similar frequency, but that one digit difference allows me to connect to Jimmy Church and not somebody else. And I think that's the way that the universe is working. This stream of knowledge and consciousness is coming through at all times. And then our bodies and our DNA combined with the magnetite crystals in that nerve in our brain then encapsulate a frequency and downloads a particular version of that consciousness, that divine energy, and we animate the avatar body through that.
So what you are suggesting, and it would have to be this way, that consciousness is math.
Absolutely. The whole universe is nothing but a mathematical equation, a divine equation, but definitely based off of pure mathematics.
Would a theoretical physicist, writing out those equations, eventually be able to whoa.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, wow, that was loud. Eventually we would be able to see this in equations, complex, yes, long, huge numbers and symbols, yes, but would we eventually be able to see consciousness in an equation?
That's a very good question. I think that they're working on that now, because one of the biggest pieces of technology that are being worked on for the future is teleportation. That's going to be a futuristic mode of transport. And right now we've been able to teleport molecules. We used to just do single particles. Now we've moved to molecules, and we just transported some molecules to the ISS, to the International Space Station, about a year ago, or whatever it was. So now what's stopping us from transporting a biological entity is a couple of things. First was storage space. Now we've just recently overcome that, now that we have DNA hard drives, because we now know that something the size of our cell phone can now store Googles and gigabytes and petabytes, if you want to call them, of information. Mm-hmm. So now we can store the location and the spin rate of every single atom in a person's body. So that takes care of that situation. Now, the other part of it is, when we do this teleportation, will the consciousness transfer with the body? And so that's probably going to be some mad scientist experiments going on in some deep underground bunker where they see how you come out on the other end if you're still conscious.
Right. Right. Well, and if it is math, which it would have to be if we're dealing with particles and atoms, and it's just simple math. But if that's the case, then I would think that quantum computing and the ability to do these calculations that right now, with our technology that we have today, takes forever to do, and because these numbers would be very complex and they would be huge. But if we could do this with a quantum computer, we could fundamentally establish consciousness as math and a way to work through it and now understand where it is in the universe, in our brains, where it goes afterwards.
Yeah, exactly. That would be an amazing feat. Now, one thing has happened in Russia. They did transfer a monkey's consciousness into a computer. That's really amazing. I
didn't hear about this.
Yeah, they transfer the monkey's consciousness into a computer. I mean, that's part of the 2045 project. Their first goal was to do that. The second goal was to transfer a human consciousness into a robot, which that was supposed to be like back in 2015, I believe. They probably have done that already. I haven't heard anything new about it. And then by 2045, the ultimate goal is to be able to transfer consciousness into a cloned avatar created from stem cells from the person's body.
Yeah. Ray Kurzweil, that's the date that Ray Kurzweil has been floating, 2045. He said it could happen as early as 2018. But I'll tell you something really funny about all of this. We had Michio Kaku on the show, a number of years ago. But the one thing that I feel like he let it slip, he said on this program, he said DARPA is already uploading and downloading consciousness onto computers, that they've already got the interface done. And it was interesting how he said it because nobody else is talking about it, right? But you know that the focus with Sandia and DARPA and Elon Musk has been this neural interface. And that is the ultimate step for mankind and for science, is to get this. But Michio 5 years ago was like, come on, they're already doing it.
Yeah. I wrote about it in my book. The DARPA is called the Avatar Project. So it's in my book, Compendium of the Emerald Tablets. They literally have the capability, DARPA, I think, joint venture Boston Dynamics, they have the capability of transferring a soldier's consciousness into a field robot now. And so that the soldier who's probably in an underground bunker halfway around the world, if the robot's killed, the symbiotic link just breaks and the soldier gets up. But obviously there's no death, no real death there. So this is something amazing.
Well, that would be immortality by definition.
That's what Thoth did. That's how he lives.
That's right.
He transfers his consciousness into different avatar bodies, and he walks amongst men, but unlike a man.
Fascinating. Let's take our break right here. This is Fade to Black, our last show for 2019. Our guest, Billy Carson, talking about the creation story, Hermeticism, all of it tonight on Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Billy Carson. Wow, I didn't hit the cough button in time. Sorry about that, Billy. I just coughed right into the microphone. It happens. It happens, my man. What do we do when we are talking about the creation story, and certainly tying it to hard science and math and physics and quantum physics, that of course everything is related. But then you have the anti-scientists that are going to say that consciousness is just an accident, that there is no intelligent creation of anything, be it God or something else, that this was all just particles combining and we're here today. There's nothing to this concept. What do we, and I'm talking about like Richard Dawkins or Lawrence Krauss and these intellectuals that have big followings, but when you die, you just become part of evolution. You just become cosmic dust and dirt.
Yeah, they're unfortunately, they're probably going to be sent back into the reincarnation cycle with no memory because they got to come back and learn their lessons all over again. Nikola Tesla said it the best. The day science begins to study non-physical phenomena, it will make more progress in 1 decade than in all the previous centuries of its existence. And that's what they need to understand. We are multidimensional beings, and science and spirituality actually go hand in hand. Science and quantum mechanics and fractal, the Mandelbrot set and phi and pi and all of that stuff could actually describe what's happening in the spiritual realms and multidimensional realms. So once we begin to study that and understand how things operate, is one of the things I utilize in my classes when I'm teaching in my workshops, is I back everything up with science, even though I'm talking about spirituality, so that people can understand the process of how things work. So everybody on this listening right now probably knows there are multiplication tables, or at least I hope they do. But how did you learn them? You learn them by memory. So you just said, okay, 2 times 2, 4 times 4, 6 times 6. You just remember the answer. But if I went to you and said, how come 2 times 2 is 4? How come 3 times, you couldn't give me the answer of why. Explain the process that gets us to that endpoint. A lot of people couldn't do it. And so what's happened is in this world is we've memorized answers instead of knowing the exact process. And I think that's what happens with people that think the way that you were just describing. We've got to understand how spirituality works. And fundamentally, it works on mathematics, and it works off of sciences and physics and quantum mechanics and all of that combined together to get a good understanding of exactly when I say to you, manifest things into reality or operate in the law of attraction. Well, that can be explained by quantum mechanics and quantum physics. But if you don't know that and know how it operates, how it functions, then you can't really understand what I'm saying to you when I say utilize the law of attraction or how to manifest something, because you can't make the link. And I think that making the link between science and spirituality is really the key to unlocking the door to the entire universe and expanding our consciousness to the next level. Now, okay, so if we go back to the 7 spheres and the basis of that, in that grand design, right? The 7 spheres. Yeah. Was it understood that you and I would eventually be talking on this show? Oh, absolutely. There's no doubt. Because when you look at mitosis and then take the as above, so below concept from the principles, right, you realize that it's a single cell, which is 1 sphere. And then, you have 2 cells through mitosis. But by the time you end up, at the 7th sphere, you're in the seed of life, then the fruit of life, then the flower of life. And inside of that, you have the capability now of creating an extremely complex being of many different formats and shapes and sizes and intellects and everything else, just through that very simple pattern of mitosis. So this mitosis format pattern is a specific type of a matrix programming that works on biological material and allows the universe to create groups of atoms that can intelligently think and reflect on itself. And that's really literally what's happened. Did Thoth understand these concepts? And and before you answer that, did Thoth base everything on going back to the Big Bang or immediately after the Big Bang? Was that part of this intelligent design, or did the Big Bang not happen and we're talking about something completely different? Right. Well, I definitely believe that Thoth, believed in these principles because he taught them. He was the main one that actually taught these principles for many eons, and not just to human beings on this planet. I believe he went around the galaxy, maybe even galaxies, teaching this information to many different civilizations. As he said, he would watch civilizations rise and fall, and that men in all worlds would to fall into the darkness, but then rise again to seek the light. So he's seen this movie before. But in terms of the Big Bang, I think that the Big Bang is really what I would consider a white hole. It's not specifically mentioned in any ancient text as such, but it's where the energy emanates from, I believe, into this dimension and creates, the energetic pattern that we have here that we're able to utilize. And, in the creation myth, it's the beginning of astrology and planets and all this other stuff. But the original source of that, I really do believe, is this white hole of energy, almost like how when you turn on a video game, the entities in that video game have a big bang because you just turned on the power. That's a white hole. I think that the same exact thing happened here. Whoever created this universe, in my opinion, was an ancestor civilization above us, because I believe that there's many, many universes, and we ourselves are now creating our own universes. So I believe that that's what happened, and somebody turned the switch on, turned on this Mandelbrot set programming fractal code that allowed this movement of energy to format itself in a way that allows for the creation of sophisticated life forms and what we consider to be solid matter.
Well, okay, so the combination of those particles, which is a finite possibility, it's not an infinite combination of particles, right? They combine only in a certain, it's a big number, but it only combines in a certain way. That basic, and I'm talking about the foundations of amino acids and sugars and complex sugars, which result into RNA, which then leads to DNA, and the transference of that data continues, genetically passes on that information, and life is created. Well, that concept, was it an accident in that particles are going to do what they're going to do? Or was there an ancient intelligence that has been around since forever that is doing this all the time?
Yeah, I think this is an all the time thing because a creator never stops creating. Okay,
right,
so
right.
You're a musician, right? I mean, you love music. Anytime you get a spare moment, which I know is rare these days, you probably pick up a guitar and start playing on that guitar a little bit, Same with me. If I get a few minutes, I pull out my MPK and start creating some beats or whatever. So it's art. It's, a gallery, of Picasso. He just continues to paint until he died. So it's all about creation, and it's as above, so below. So this, the creator or creators of this realm are on a consistent creation process, or in a consistent creation process, and don't want to stop. It's just part of what we do. And you look at human beings, how creative and artistic we are on a consistent basis. I think that's evidence of the creator itself, that we're doing the same exact thing by creating on a consistent basis. One of the principles talks about this, and it says, we have man being given the power of creation. You create your own reality. The idea that man is a dual nature, one in heaven, which is non-material, the soul or the spirit, and one physical in the world of matter, which is in the body, and the fall, which is leaving heaven to be with nature. So we're duplicating the same thing that's happening with the universal consciousness, where it falls from its realm and enters into the third dimension to experience itself subjectively as human beings, as whales, as dolphins, as everything else, to see what it's like to be in this dimension. But it's all based off this fractal holography, I believe.
Well, if that is the case, and time is moving in one direction, if we go back to the origins of the universe, and certainly the point source of everything, which would be the Big Bang, was this interdimensional possibility existing before the Big Bang, before time itself can be measured?
Yeah, I believe so. You see, because the third dimension, we utilize time as an arrow to keep ourselves pointing in a specific direction,
right? So
that we can actually manage or maneuver through this matrix. But one dimension above us in a 90-degree angle, just one dimension up to the fourth, you'd be able to see the past, present, and future all at once. Kind of likening to you being inside of your studio right now, but being in different rooms in the same studio at different points in time in your life. And I'm up the fourth dimension looking at you in every single different room in that one studio. That's how I would envision you in the third dimension. And I'd be able to see right through the walls and everything else. Just like if you draw a two-dimensional photo on your piece of paper, you can see inside of the house that you just drew. You can see inside of the closets and everything else from the third dimensional perspective, looking out into the second dimension. So that's the same type of a setup. But it's really just a miraculous dimension. When you look at the Mandelbrot set and the fractal equation, and you look at a video game called No Man's Sky, which we've created, 13 college students made this video game. It has 80 quadrillion planets, each teeming with unlimited amount of life on each planet. And the game never ends. So we ourselves have created now our own artificial universe. It runs on the Mandelbrot set equation, and it's on the size of a single DVD. So we keep copying what's already been done from the highest level down to our level.
Well, and I'll tell you why I agree with that and even understand it is the age of the universe, which is 13.8 billion years. We've arrived at that number, which I think is completely off, by the way. I don't even agree with it. But 13.8 billion years because of the expansion of the universe and the speed of it. And they've taken that, reversed the number, gone back to zero. And that time that they have come up with is 13.8 billion years. What they didn't understand and still don't is the speed of the expansion, right? And how it is increasing. We don't know if it slowed down or increased or what the speed was 10 billion years ago. And how complex of a number that actually is in these calculations, that I think this 13.8 billion year number is, what's the word that I want to use is, it could be any number. It could be any number. That's just the number that they are using today.
Yeah. That was their best guess. It's just a hypothesis. Their best guess. And even though it's
arbitrary, it's an arbitrary number.
Yes,
right.
Exactly. Yes. That's correct. And the expansion that's fueling this, what's fueling the expansion apparently is this dark energy and this dark matter. Now, dark energy and dark matter, we keep mistaking. I hear a lot of people when I mention it, in certain areas of the conscious community, they have the idea that it's really dark. No. Dark energy and dark matter is what we're calling it, but it's all light. It's electromagnetic waves of light on the frequency level that we can't see with the visible eye, and we're calling it dark. And we can see it now with technology, clumps of it and everything else, but it's all electromagnetic frequencies, which are electromagnetic waves are just nothing but light. So this light energy, this light matrix, this light bubble that we're inside of is expanding, at a real fast exponential rate. It's pretty incredible design. Will it expand to the point when it reaches a specific size that it bumps into another bubble and creates another white hole, and then kickstart a whole nother universe? I mean, we can theorize so many different ways that it continues to propagate, but
that's the best part of the creation story. Is we really don't understand much. We're learning more, but in the big story here, we actually know nothing. And one of the concepts that astronomers and physicists are trying to get us to understand is in the expansion, the galaxies are moving away from each other. No matter where you go in any point of the universe, everything is moving away from each other. And you have to ask yourself, how is that possible? It should be moving apart from a central point. Mm-hmm. And they confuse this idea, because if it came from a central point in creation and expanded outward, then we should be moving like a balloon expands, right? And everything would be moving. But any galaxy you look at is moving away from another galaxy, right? It's like, how can it doesn't make any sense unless you look at it from a creation standpoint where everything is the same all over the place and creation is happening all the time. Therefore, the Big Bang probably didn't happen, not in the way that they're trying to make us understand. And we
Right.
only know from their perspective on how they try to explain it to us. Right? Right? Am I making sense here?
Oh, you're making total sense. I agree. I agree with you. I mean, I see it likening to almost like the Noahs and the seven circles around the six spheres around the seventh and the seed of life. Could it possibly be that, because I believe that the universe is a giant bubble, could it be that one sphere, in other words, the same way that cells duplicate and replicate, could the universe have moved out in that same direction from all different sides? Where you have one sphere, which would be one cell, and then moving out, moving out, moving out. That's a possibility. Or could it be a membrane that we're on this energetic membrane grid, and this membrane grid just populates life all throughout this entire membrane? There's just so many ways to look at it and analyze it. And there's a very strong possibility that there wasn't just one big bang. There could have been multiple bangs. We don't really know. The energy that appears to be here seems to be pretty constant, and it doesn't appear that any new energy is coming in. But how do we know that? We don't, we're just now getting to the point where we can begin to measure the amount of, or estimate the amount of, solid matter in the universe. But we're still a little ways off. We got a lot more to learn.
And in the creation story, and we look at the timeline, and certainly where we are now, right? Again, I'll say we don't know much. But what is the next stage in the creation story? Is it the singularity? Is it getting AI and the advancement of that, and getting the neural side of things connected? Is that the next evolutionary stage in the creation story?
I think that there's going to be just like a baby begins to learn how to crawl, then get up and walk, and then it always falls. Like every single one of my kids, as soon as they started walking, took their first couple of steps, they fell down. So we're getting to the point now with this AI technology and this integrated technology, cyborg technology, which is great for certain things and has its purpose, especially for disabled people. But we are going to have the mad scientists and the military right now, which we haven't, been able to take control over. So they're going to do what they want to do. And they're going to try to stand up and walk with this technology, and they're going to fall. And when they fall, the whole civilization falls. So we're going to feel that fall. It's going to hurt. Our knees are going to get scraped up and everything else. But I truly do believe that we will, rise to walk again under a different level of consciousness, because every time a baby falls, the brain records the reason why it fell. Even though the baby doesn't really understand it, it subconsciously recorded it. And so the next time it tries to take a step, it remembers, okay, balance here, shift the weight over here, okay, do this here. And all walking is a controlled fall. That's all it is. So we'll learn how to control our fall, but it's going to take a few more thousand years to get to that point. So right now we are going to experiment with this AI technology and this cyborg technology and this consciousness transfer technology, even though we're not ready for it yet. We were at the level of utilizing something that we consciously are not ready for. And because of that, we are going to fall. There's no way around it.
The transfer of consciousness that you just referred to, if you did that, right?
Yeah.
What happens? Are you thinking twice? Is the same consciousness thinking for both? In other words, do you become two different people? If you transfer your consciousness into a cyborg, are you now having the same dreams? Are you having the same thoughts? Or is it two different, or does one die and the other continues to live?
You just hit the point. That's exactly what happens. One dies and the other continues to live. Okay, so in teleportation, even at the most simplest level that we're doing right now,
right?
Molecules or the atoms or the particles that we start off at point A are destroyed, and a copy appears at point B, no matter what the distance. A copy, an identical copy, but a copy.
What does the destruction?
The disintegration of the empty space between the atoms.
I'm not sure if I follow. I think I am. Hold on for a second. That the destruction would happen because it's part of nature, that you can't have two consciousness identical at the same time?
Oh, on the conscious level, yes, of course, yeah. So that's what I'm thinking. Just like if you travel back in time, the reason why the grandfather paradox is irrelevant is because if you travel back in time, you end up in a different, universe. A parallel universe. That's why you can kill your grandfather and still have traveled back in time. Same thing with consciousness transfer. The first one is gone. The new one is a totally newly emerged consciousness with aspects of the prior and memory, but is totally a copy. It's a copy. Like if I fax you a document through an old style fax machine, you'll have a copy of what I put in my machine over here. Then I'll take it over here and I'll shred it.
Right, it's a facsimile. Okay, So going back to what you had said earlier about the Russians transferring the mind of a monkey onto a computer.
Yeah.
Does the monkey die?
The monkey's died. Yeah, he's dead.
Okay, so if DARPA is doing what Michio Kaku suggested on this program 5 years ago, that they've got some soldier, right, somebody from the Army, signed up into this program. He goes and sits in the chair, puts on the headset, right, and they transfer his memory, his consciousness onto a hard drive. Mm-hmm. That soldier is dead, right?
Yes, absolutely. That's correct. And then they transfer it back. It's a copy of himself. It's just that's how it operates. Now, when you do a symbiotic link, it's a little bit different. So if you do like the Avatar project where they transfer you to a field robot, I believe that it's still in a way a copy because it's like a web, like an internet connection where you're symbiotically linked to the actual field robot and you're controlling it with your thoughts. And then if the field robot's destroyed, it disconnects the link.
Right, but your consciousness is not inside of the robot.
Correct. It's not. It's just a link. It's like a internet web link in a way, so to speak, through satellite technology or whatever other technology that they're using.
Man, my brain hurts just thinking about this, but that would make a lot of sense. And if the way that a computer creates a simulation, you just brought up No Man's. It's not going to draw every single or have on the DVD every single layer, every single texture, the inside of the building, the hallways, the rooms, the furniture, the floors. It's only creating what you are seeing as you move through the game.
Exactly. And that's the same way the real world works. We've now figured that out through quantum physics. That right now, you're in the studio and you're home. It doesn't exist as a solid object. It exists as an electromagnetic wave right now.
Yeah, you don't exist to me. I'm not there.
Right. I'm not. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it would take up too much memory space. You can't know the name or every 7 billion people on this planet, or their homes, or their jobs, and their family, and everything else that's involved. You only know when you interface with them.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly. That's about wave-particle duality.
Wow, man, that's heavy. All right,
by the way, we just took a picture of the first wave-particle duality image, where we caught a wave converting into a particle right at the in-between stage of doing it. We took the first photo of it a few months back.
Yeah, I saw it. It's incredible. All right, we're going to do some overtime, Billy. It's our last show of the year, so you stay right there. When we come back, we're going to jump into entropy and the creation story. We'll be right back after this short break. More with Billy Carson next. Stay with us. Overtime. All right, welcome back. Fade to Black, our guest tonight, Billy Carson. This is our last show for 2019, and we're going to go out with a bang. We've got to do overtime with our last show of the year. We got to find the energy, Billy. You and I really been burning the candle at both ends this last week, but we've got to do this. And the reason why entropy needs to come into play is, well, first, you just brought it up in with the creation story. And does everything, certainly with creation, does everything end in entropy?
Basically, yeah, because everything operates in cycles. And so entropy, for people who don't know, it's about thermodynamics. It's basically the quantity representing the unavailability of a system's thermal energy. So it's really about the use of energy. If you want to take it into a metaphysical platform, it's about the use of energy in a system. And when that energy begins to utilize itself for whatever purpose, for the purpose of mitosis, cell division, for thought power, moving things around, whatever it is, whatever's within that system, the entropy will take over, meaning it's going to lead from move from an ordered state to a disordered state over time. And so you see that's what happens even with a human avatar. So you start off with a single cell, then you become the seed of life, and then you grow into a full-blown human being. And then as you utilize the energy, the life force inside of your cells, towards the end of your life, they begin to degrade and not be able to replicate and reproduce properly. And then you begin the death process. That's entropy in a human body. And that same thing operates in all systems, not just biological, but even mechanical and even financial systems all operate off of that same level of entropy.
Everything's going to come unglued.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Everything comes unglued. Wall Street, your garage, it starts off clean.
Good one.
It ends up a pile of garbage, right?
You're right.
And as simple as that sounds, not only like with an egg, right? An egg is like the perfect example of entropy because it's going to get cracked. Or it's going to get cracked and cooked, but it's not going to be the perfect egg. Or it's going to turn into a chicken that's going to die, right? Everything ends that way. And if we look at expanding out beyond that concept when we're talking about the creation story applies to civilizations as well. That's right, where they start off perfect. Look at ancient Egypt. Started off perfect, right?
Yep. Fully formed civilization, already at a high level at the beginning.
Came unglued.
Yeah.
Greece came unglued, right? Everything comes unglued. Why, if we look at it in its most basic form, I keep saying concept over and over again because it does repeat itself. So when we look at ourselves in the creation story, ultimately, do we come unglued? Do we get rid of our meat sacks that we live in and move on to something else, whether it's a light being or we live as androids or whatever it is? But do we take that evolutionary step through entropy where we are going to eventually get so complex that we disintegrate?
Mm-hmm. There's a couple of different paths that we can take. Now, if you look at the Great Year or the Yuga cycle, which I like to call it, where we're talking about the cycle, which is a rise and fall of civilizations. Right now, I think that we're in the Tetra Yuga on the left side of that Yuga sphere, moving up into the Golden Age. But we're at the very beginning, very, very beginning of the Tetra Yuga. We just came out of a Bronze Age. And this cycle is a massive, massive cycle that spans tens of thousands of years, where you have the Tetra Yuga, the Satya Yuga, which is the Golden Age, back into the Silver Age again, down into the Bronze, which is the Dwapara Yuga. And then you have the Iron Ages, which is the Kali Yuga. And we're definitely, to me, in my opinion, on the movement up towards a Golden Age. But that cycle can be seen in every single thing. This rise and fall. You can see the rise and fall of empires, like we just talked about.
Right.
See the rise and fall of civilizations on an entire planet. You can even see the rise and fall of a solar system. Because why? Because the solar system will form from exploded stardust, formulate, live for trillions of years potentially. And then when a sun runs out of fuel, it will then expand to a red giant and absorb and kill or destroy all of those planets, and then destroy it, and then internalize it and destroy itself, or turn into a black hole and suck everything in. Either way, this entropy permeates throughout the entire universe in every system, in all systems. And people will come back through the reincarnation cycle. Some will come back into another avatar body, maybe not even on this planet, but some adepts, people that are true initiates that have consciously become ascended masters, could potentially ascend their light being to another dimension, even another realm, according to some of the ancient texts, and not be stuck back into the reincarnation cycle in this third dimension. So there's two tracks you can take, kind of a fork in the road, so to speak.
Well, okay, so in the creation story, and certainly I like creation cycle too as well, at a certain stage, if we understand and embrace entropy, is there a way to head it off at the pass and not allow entropy to be the end result of everything?
Oh, wow. That's part of a movie that I'm working on right now. So there's a movie called Quantum Walkers. And what happens is I'm on Earth in two parallel universes. The Earths are the same exact age. And in one Earth is 2025. It's the path that we're on right now, the Rothschild system. The other one is a more advanced Tesla mindset took over that planet, that Earth. And so even though it's the same year, 2025, it's a type 2 civilization. So what happens is we start experimenting, we meaning me and myself, start experimenting with the jet pillar Ankh on both planets, both Earths at the same exact time, experimenting with the frequencies that allow stargates to open. And my consciousness transfers to my other body because I match the frequency of that parallel, and over there it transfers into this body. And so the whole point of what I'm making is when I get to the future, I realize that it's the golden age. And even though I can't get back to where I was from, I realize I'm here on a mission to stop the decline of the golden age, because I see the telltale signs of entropy in that system. I see wars starting to pop up, ego starting to pop up, deceit starting to pop up. So my mission begins to try to stop the fall of the golden age on that Earth. And in the other Earth, where it's the Rothschild system, I'm trying to raise consciousness to help bring us into the golden age so that we can get out of this mindset and get to the next level. So in one place, I'm trying to push up, to the next level, to the golden age. And the other side, I'm trying to stop the decline of the golden age. We're in a cycle loop, but there's nowhere written that says it has to be this way. When can we break this cycle? It's a very tough thing to conceive, and it's on massive timescales, but that doesn't mean it can't happen.
Well, okay, so then this is what I see. In the Tesla world, focusing back and trying to change things in the Rothschild world, I like the way that you put it, that entropy ends up happening anyway in the Tesla world because of the focus of trying to help the other world, and then entropy hits on the other one, and then you're going through these cycles, right? And inevitably, entropy always wins.
Right. That's the problem. And it's something that we have not been able to overcome. And it's just as simple as understanding the output of energy. Once energy begins to output itself and move, it transforms into something else. So, for example, if I take the energy inside of my arm and use it to pick up the phone, my cell phone, I have now transferred that energy into lifting something that was normally going to stay inside of my body if I didn't decide to do that. So energy keeps transforming around us on a consistent basis. And because of that, things become more disordered. So if I put my cell phone down in a different area, in a spot where it's not supposed to be, I just created a little bit of entropy, a little bit of disorder just happened. So that's what it's all about. And it's like Father Time. Father Time never lost a battle.
ever. And nature's always going to win. And if we look at it with a microscope back to the atomic level, where entropy is always going to be the end result, the way that we have come along now, and especially in the last 25 years, where the internet now runs everything. Every aspect of our lives, food, finances, information, employment, insurance, health, medical, every single aspect of our lives has gotten so complex with the software, with the algorithms, with the code writing that goes all the way through and permeates Wall Street so much that we don't even understand the mortgage and the banking system anymore. It's layer upon layer upon layer.
Yeah.
It's gotten so complex that if it breaks down, and entropy will win.
Yeah.
Right? That's the only, there's got to be a way to understand this and try to prevent it. But if it collapses, if the internet collapsed today, we're done. We're done.
Yeah.
We're done. As a planet, we're toast. We wouldn't, we're like 2 weeks of survival.
Right, exactly. That's why I built the underground shelter, Fort Terra Nova, back in 2012. That's all I was on the History Channel for that Nostradamus episode. They found out about my shelter that I built because I foresee within the next 250 years, and it can happen at any time, there will be a severe economic collapse based on a geological disaster or a technological disaster. And I'm probably leaning more towards a technological disaster. I'm thinking possibly an EMP strike, which would knock out all electronics.
Right.
And which would be the internet and everything else, unless you have a 1972 Ford something with a solenoid in it instead of a digital ignition.
Right.
You toast. And I think that, that's another form of entropy that could possibly happen on this planet. And at some point, the economic system will completely collapse because it just has to. That's just the way. Look, Rome didn't persist forever. Like you said, none of these civilizations will persist forever. At some point, the collapse comes, and you have to be prepared for it and then restructure a brand new beginning, which starts the entropy from zero again, Well, if we look at the basics of the basics, which is Spain, Portugal, Italy, Greece, Japan, China, Russia, the Soviet Union, the United Kingdom, right? Anything that dominated at one point isn't today. Right.
And if anyone, and the United States is so young, the rise and fall of the Soviet Union, okay, all right. Germany, okay, we see that. France, we see it over and over again. And the United States being in its position right now, it can't last forever. And would it come from inside like it did with all of these other great civilizations and empires that rose and fall? Or would it be something not necessarily directly from the United States that would cause our collapse, but it would be everything all at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Across the planet and around the globe.
Mm-hmm. It could be, the reason why the United States tries to dominate other countries and keep its boot on everybody's neck is because once any one of these third world countries are able to rise up technologically and become a force in space technology and other things, then they can rival the United States and they can rival the fiat currency system. So we keep our boot on everybody's neck to keep them down so that we can control and maintain dominance. And so, the reason why the United States is a dominant force is because we literally control space. There's nothing that can happen in space without our consent.
That's right. And if we get down to very simple situations today, it would be the creation of very simple software that can think. And the first country, the first person that crosses that line, software that could overtake our military software, right? That could stay one step in front of, control the satellites, control information, control the internet, control manufacturing, control agriculture. And it would be simple software, by the way. It doesn't have to be advanced. It just has to know how to think.
Right. That's it.
That's it. And
computers, that's what's going to happen.
And that country will be the winner in the end. The Soviets or China or the United Kingdom, it doesn't matter what. Nobody wants that edge to go to the other because then all bets are off.
Yeah, that's the new WMD technology.
That is the new WMD.
Not just software. Yeah.
That's right. Mm-hmm. That's right. Which brings us back to the creation story and entropy, where that could be, right? It's going to get so complex. It starts off perfect, right? It starts off perfect. It ends with disaster. It just comes unglued. And that could be from somebody or something or a country that has that edge up, and then everything unravels.
Yeah, that's the situation that we're always facing. And, unfortunately, because everybody's, not everybody, but these governments are operating in this dark mindset, like Thoth calls them the dark brothers, instead of operating in a system of unconditional love and light, understanding if they really truly understood that they can still maintain a certain level of success and love and life and really enjoy life, I think on a whole nother level that they don't even know exists, basing economic systems and structuring them off of respect, love, and how to use this AI technology, how to utilize this advanced technology to create less jobs that people have to work and give civilizations a more level playing field and allow people to spend more time doing arts and crafts and traveling and experiencing life in a better way and giving everybody equal opportunity to do that, whether it's on some type of a system or a cycle that they get to travel and move around or do these things. And your level in life will be based on how good you are at what you do and how you treat people, not based off of how you can dominate somebody and corporatize a system and rob resources from people. And
I think you just answered the question. How do you beat entropy at its own game?
Unconditional love.
Instead of advancing technology at a rate that we can't even control or understand, you take that knowledge that you have of the technology and back it back up to a more simplified situation. Let everybody else come unglued, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But because we took a step back and understood the individuality of things, local farming, local logistics, right? And not having every power plant and electrical grid tied into the internet, because if it goes down, it all goes down. But back up.
Like all your eggs in one basket. Oh,
yes. God. Yeah. Instead of having all your eggs back to entropy, right? Having all your eggs in one basket, make it individualized and localized down to the family and the individual level and grow it from there. And if you embrace that concept, if one little thing collapses, it doesn't affect everything else.
Right. Exactly. I think the Anunnaki knew about the dangers of artificial intelligence because they had the capability of creating very sophisticated machines that can travel through space to other planets. Yet and still, when it came down to the point of creating a worker race, instead of creating robots or androids, they decided to genetically modify a hominid that they can control. So I think even they realized the dangers of artificial intelligence and robotic software to the point where they probably have maybe learned their lessons in the past and survived it.
The concept of automation and certainly self-driving cars and, what Elon Musk is, his vision of the future, if you don't buy a Tesla, you're going to miss out because that's the future. You know what? That the automation driving grid, if that goes down, you know who wins? The dude that's got a bike.
Right.
he's gonna pedal right past your Tesla.
Right.
Because if the system goes down, right? Who's gonna win if who's the winner if the GPS and telecommunication satellites go down?
Right.
Somebody with a walkie-talkie.
Right. Yeah, that's right. You got it right, man. I mean, inside of the shelter, we have a front load.
What's the address of this shelter? Did you send me keys?
There's a 7,000 person waiting list after it aired on the History Channel. So yeah, it's just sold out. It's only for 360 people, and so we went through an arduous process of picking those people, psychological tests and everything else, health tests, health exams, because, you don't want anybody down there getting sick and dying or coming in with some type of illness or disease that can spread to other people. It's just a long process.
I obviously didn't make the cut. So
I didn't know you back then, man.
Is there room? Can we build?
I'm going to work on another one, actually.
Can we build another room? Can we build a back house?
I can't it's already buried. But we're going to work on another one here probably by 2022. I'm going to start the project up again. As long as I can find the right place, because it took a long time to find the location. You have to look for argon gases and you can't be in a place where there's contaminated underground flows of water. It has to be fresh, clean water flowing underground.
Right.
You have to be 400 miles away from any nuclear power plants, and you can't be downwind from any. You can't be downwind from any volcanic activity. You can't be on any fault lines. 700 feet away from the coastline, 700 feet above sea level on a gradual incline or more. Higher than that's possible, but you can't be on a fault line to get to that level. So it's just a lot goes into it. I mean, it's just a real geologically, it's a lot of work to get that process right there is like $50,000 just to find the right location and do all the testing and everything else. Yeah.
Rita and I will be out there with Richard Dolan, ringing the doorbell.
Yeah.
Ring the doorbell.
You guys are more than welcome. I'll sleep on the floor, man. Let you guys get inside my bunk.
hey, Rita and I can cook. We could cook for everybody.
Nice. Yeah, we have chefs. We can always use more. We have a turbine diesel engine generator mechanic. We have a dentist. We have doctors. We have teachers. We have martial art instructors. We have security. We have, every aspect of a civilization that you would need. We have all of that. We have lots and lots of books, because if everything goes down with power, then at least you have books you can read and learn from, survival books and everything else. It's a big project.
Wow. Incredible. Hey, Billy, thank you. What a great year it has been with you and Fade to Black. And Rita and I extend our heartfelt thanks. You are a member of this family. Thank you for everything and your support. Going into 2020, it's going to be a remarkable year. I'm very excited about it. And I want you and your family to have the most amazing New Year's Eve tomorrow. And here we go, man. Buckle up. 2020 is right in front of us.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be huge, man. Thank you so much. I love you and I love Rita, man. And I really appreciate everything in your Fade or Not community that you guys have done for me, how you've embraced me. And I'm looking forward to a phenomenal 2020.
Yeah, and we're going to see you in 4 short weeks out here at the Conscious Life Expo.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Just right back again. That's right. Oh, wow. Amazing year. I'm going to Göbekli Tepe in 2020. I can't wait.
Yeah, we're going to. So maybe we'll go together. Göbekli Tepe.
Yeah, let's set it up, man.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much,
right,
Billy. And like I said, have a great New Year's Eve tomorrow, you and the family. And here we go. Thank you so much.
All right, man.
Billy Carson, ForbiddenKnowledge.com. So Billy's got the underground shelter for 300. And my invitation just got lost. Man. There you go. Thank you so much, Billy. And for all of you, this is our last show of the year, but we will be back in 2020 on Thursday with Danny and Brinkley. And it's going to be a great show. We're going to be focusing on the Conscious Life Expo, going through all of the events for you. We're going to cover every angle of the Conscious Life Expo, and that's going to kick off on Thursday night, January 2nd, 2020. And so with that, I am out of here. What a great show tonight. What a great way to end the year here on Fade to Black with all of you. Fade to Black's executive producers, Rita Camarion. Shows produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee, Dennis, and Bob. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vitoa, Mark D. Kovar. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy, SpaceboyMusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network, and syndication is KGRA, The Planet. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2019 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I want to thank everybody here at Fade to Black, our entire staff. What a great, amazing year. 2020 is now in front of us. I am your host, Jimmy Church. I want everybody to have an amazing, safe, great New Year's Eve tomorrow night. We'll see you right here on Thursday. Until then, be safe. Go back, Lee Tappy.